Hey everyone, thanks for checking out the latest edition of Parker X. In this episode, we got a chance to sit with Jimmy Maglothin from 2020 Parking. I've known Jimmy for quite a while, and super stand-up guy, super knowledgeable guy, really passionate about everything he does. And we kind of talked to him today about his kind of backstory and his career and how he led up to where he is today, about starting his own business, and some overall trends in parking and what he's seeing and where he thinks everything's going. It's a fantastic episode. Enjoy. All right, I'm Lester Mascon, and this is Parker X, and today we're sitting with Jimmy Maglothin, 2020 Parking.
Hey, Lester.
How you doing, Jimmy?
Doing well.
So we're here at the IPMI show.
Yeah.
I think I might call it IPI forever.
I want to call it IPI.
I keep wanting to. So another year, maybe I'll
The word mobility
switch.
makes me mad.
Yeah, why is that?
Because they changed it. I'm adverse to change, I guess.
Yeah, that's all right, though. So just kind of jump right in. So take us through kind of your career up to date. I mean, I've known you for a little while now.
Sure.
But I don't think I know the whole story either. So
Okay. Well, I went to Texas A&M University. Got my degree in civil engineering.
Okay.
While I was in school, I worked for a small engineering firm in College Station that did land development. So I worked there for 4 years during college. So I had quite a bit of experience doing subdivision design, commercial site plans, things of that nature. So when I started interviewing for jobs, I was looking for a land development position. Took a job with Kimley Horn, and shortly before I was supposed to start, their practice builder for land development in the Houston office left, so I kind of didn't have a job. And
Oh,
they
really?
said, well, our parking guy needs help. So I interviewed with Harold Schulke,
Okay.
who was
No, Harold.
who was my mentor, and he talked about parking and what he did and flying all over the world, and I told him I didn't understand half of what he said, but I was a quick learner. So 18 years later, still doing it. So during my time at Kimley Horn, he was very highly focused on the airport market, and that's kind of been my background, and to this day I'm still focused on the airport market. They seem to be very willing to spend the money to have things done very thoroughly, make sure their revenues are protected, they get the right technology, and don't get a flash in the pan solution, something like that.
Got it.
So worked at Kimley Horn for 12 years doing that.
Okay.
And then had the opportunity to go join Walker Parking Consultants. So I served as their director of car park management systems for Off-Street.
This is all based in Houston.
Well, based in Houston, but I
travel, yeah.
rarely work in Houston.
Not enough airports there.
Yeah, there's a few.
Yeah, a few.
So worked at Walker for a couple years, and then met doing the Tampa project. Met Michelle Kurkowski and Stephen Grant, and we teamed on that project and worked well together. And kind of an offshoot of that, I was presented with the opportunity to start my own company.
So Stephen was on his own already at that point.
Stephen was on his own, as was Michelle.
Yep.
So kind of joined the cult of jumping off the cliff and starting your own company. So
you're almost like a career parking guy. Like you've never had
that's all
done
I've ever
anything
done.
else. Yeah. Well, that's cool though.
So yeah, it's been almost 4 years now since I started 2020.
God, it's been that long already.
Yeah.
Wow.
And of course the first opportunity, the project that got me out the door was that MGM project that you and I worked together on.
Yep, Vegas.
Which was a amazing project. The amount of work that got done and the amount of time it got done in is something I've never seen recreated before.
I don't know if it'll ever happen again. That was just
Yeah.
I think the guidance was like the hard part on top of that, right? Like the parking was like, okay, we can do this. Then we can throw 20,000 spaces of guidance on top of it. That
Yeah, and having to chase around, fixing other people's work because they had the union guys put in the wiring for the guidance, and finding 500 shorts in the New York garage was
that's always fun, isn't it?
Was fun.
So what have been the highs and lows since you kind of started your own thing?
You know what? It's been mostly highs.
Yeah.
It's been fun. The network of contacts that I've built, over my 18 years in the industry, kind of didn't realize it at first. So I've been blessed that opportunities keep coming up, and really haven't had to scramble around, for work. Everything you're scared about when you start your own company. So I've been very lucky in that sense. Cool. I would say, the lows, of course, are being away from the family, because if I'm busy, that means I'm usually on a plane somewhere. So it's kind of a balance, but it's nice, when you get home, to really be able to take off and focus on that. And
are you able to do that easily?
Oh yeah,
I have trouble disconnecting.
I'm very good at that.
Yeah, that's cool. So let's talk about airports a little bit. You've kind of been in airports pretty much almost exclusively through most of your career. So what are issues airports are facing today? What are the biggest issues they're facing today, and kind of what are they doing to solve them?
Well, I think right now you're seeing airports, they're not usually the front runners in the new experimental technologies coming out. So, I've focused mostly on their parks replacements and parking guidance systems. So parking guidance systems has been one of the trends in the last few years that airports finally move forward with. For years they would talk about them, and once it got to the point of showing them how much it costs per space, it would fall off the list they required.
The prices come down too on that quite a bit from where it once was.
Yeah,
it's only going to go so low because the infrastructure takes work. But
yeah, and at the airports I see both, because a lot of times airports have arduous requirements for rigid conduit, has to be painted, stainless steel fasteners, all this stuff that end up driving the cost up.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't say that I've seen many projects at airports where it's a bargain deal.
Yeah, I gotcha.
Just because of their own requirements.
I think the installation ends up costing more than the actual product, though.
Yeah,
usually.
Exactly. So, having the guidance contractors find a local contractor.
Yeah.
And they know they kind of have them in their own position. But as far as the parking access control side of it, I think right now you see a large trend with the reservations platforms.
Okay.
And I think the companies coming over from Europe, where it's very popular and an accepted method of doing things, trying to tweak that to fit the U.S. market. And a lot of times, a lot of airports in Europe have a lot of competition, and so they're constantly fighting with off-airport competition to get people to park at the airport.
It's amazing how much, like, some airports you go and there's virtually nothing.
Right.
And then you go to LAX and it's like,
yeah, everywhere. I think
it's amazing. There's so many off airports.
Like
parking spots
Newark,
there.
I think, has like 28 off airport competitors.
Wow.
Then you go look at Tampa, and they have one that's kind of a competitor. So when you already have 95, 98% market share, then you start looking at, well, what's the purpose of this online booking system?
Yeah, if there's no one else around.
What purpose is there in offering a discount if they're going to park there anyway?
Sure.
So I think there's been several airports that have bought it and got it up and running, and then it hasn't really been utilized or promoted much, and so I think that's starting to catch on.
I think using the aggregators might be an interesting way to do it on that, because I know like when I go to park near LAX, I mean, it's cheap airport parking is like, I mean, it's a great URL. So
right, yeah,
you go to it, find your spot.
Yeah,
often getting a great price when you're doing it too. But there's a lot of competition there, like you said.
Yeah, and then there's revenue share.
Yeah,
the airport giving up some of their parking revenue that they're adverse to working through those problems.
Yeah, no doubt. What about all the rideshare stuff? I mean, how are they dealing with that? Do you deal with that at all much with them when you're...
Yeah, it comes up. I mean,
okay.
It's obviously a challenge for them because the popularity, of Uber and Lyft, taking off has been a hit to their parking.
Sure.
What it seems like most of the airports that I've worked at, what I've seen is that parking revenues have not necessarily dropped, but maybe they've flattened, or instead of growing, 6-10% a year, they're growing 1 to 2% a year. So they're, looking at ways to capture the revenue that the parking revenue loss that the Uber and Lyft is taking, and so figuring out the right terms to set up with those the TNC companies to charge access fees, which can be a challenge because of the turnover in drivers, and it's impossible to credential them.
Because that used to be a big revenue stream for the airport, was authorizing taxi companies to
Sure, yeah, and
do all the drop-offs.
And they're doing that with Uber now. It's finding the way. The challenge is finding how to charge them. And there's the geofence systems, but inevitably it ends up being those companies self-reporting.
Yeah.
And so then putting in some type of process to audit them, at least on a spot check basis, to make sure that the revenue they say that they're
giving is actually
they're giving
accurate.
you is what you should be getting.
Yeah. I was talking with it was Jonathan Wicks about San Francisco Airport.
Mm-hmm.
They said they're actually they're building a train out to their long-term lot, and then they're going to make that the designated Uber, Lyft, or rideshare pickup drop-off area out there.
Yeah.
And if you want to get dropped off right in front of the airport, it actually will charge you a premium to do it.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
I know airports struggle with, they don't want all the congestion on the curb, so they want to put Ubers and Lyfts in some remote area, and then backlash from the customers because they want that to be
right
immediately outside the door.
Yeah.
So airports are constantly balancing operations with customer service.
What else are you working on with airports, you think, that are new challenges or just interesting way of solving old ones?
Well, we're seeing a lot of interest in camera-based guidance systems now.
Okay.
So we're working at the Denver airport on an RFP that will be issued soon. Working at the Portland airport, putting in a camera guidance system there that's about ready to be turned on and testing.
What do you think the value is on that?
Well, they're very interested in, one of the main things is the help with the license plate inventory.
Okay.
The reduction in labor that they perceive they can have by having the license plates already in inventory, and then maybe just going out having to spot check. And so that's what I always tell them. It will not replace and eliminate the need for a nightly LPI, but it can reduce it significantly. So just instead of going by every space, just going by the ones where
really just adjust for the labor savings and equipment saving.
Well, no, I mean, that's not the only reason,
Okay.
but it seems like that ends up being the biggest selling point to the guys that are actually in operations. Of course, there's all the talk about being able to charge premium rates for premium spaces based on the license plate numbers, but that requires having an LPR system at the entry and exit to tie in with the ticket. So like Portland, for example, doesn't have license plate recognition on entry and exit.
It's a tough plate there too, by the way.
Yeah. So that's not one of the features they'll be able to get out of it. But, the ability to have enhanced security, camera on different areas is something that's appetizing to them as well, beyond just an ultrasonic sensor.
Sure.
Now, at the end of the day, what they're really concerned about is getting customers to their parking space quickly. So my feelings is that the ultrasonic system accomplishes their goals for the most part, and then the camera-based systems offer a few, nice features that help them able to sell it to their upper management.
I think the cost difference between ultrasonic and guidance is huge, like massive, right? Especially when you consider that your ultrasonic systems are going to be in place for 15 years, right? Before
so that's something we've been going around and trying to really flush out the camera-based market. There's a couple in the U.S. that sort of dominate, especially the airport market, Park Assist and Index.
Sure.
So we've been trying to learn, other systems that are out there, and usually that's not in the U.S. So we had the opportunity to go to South Korea and look at a system there, TIS.
Wow.
So it was actually the first camera-based system back in like the year 2000, I believe.
Really?
So that's cool, learning and hearing them talk. They do ultrasonic and camera-based, and they say, well, we always, put in ultrasonic unless the garage doesn't already have a CCTV system. If they're going to have to put in a CCTV system, then the customer will put in a camera-based system. And it was really interesting because they have a very large client base there. The Korean equivalent of Costco, I think, has like 200 stores there. And so this one company had the guidance system at like 180 of those stores. So it's the same customer with the same vendor, different solutions in different garages, and they've done it so many times they know down to the penny what they should and shouldn't put in. The thing that really kind of stuck out to me is them saying that the camera systems had a 5 to 7 year life expectancy. When you compare that to an ultrasonic system that 12 to 15 years, that's really an eye opener, because then when you're looking at two proposals and they cost the same, they really don't when you consider having to.
You think they cost the same for implementation up front? I guess because you get like that 6-to-1, 4-to-1 kind of ratio with the camera instead of a 1-to-1 on the ultrasonic sensor. I guess they kind of.
Well, there's so many options in how you install a system, even in ultrasonic. Like, the one at MGM, they had one unistrut and just put the sensors right on it, and that was fairly cheap. But when you look at,
they have the dropper at the end.
The dropper, and then even with the cameras, if you have the camera in the middle, but then put the dropper so you have a space, a light over every space. I mean, all that impacts the cost so much.
I'm not like a cost buyer, but I just struggle to get to the value on the camera-based guidance. And I know that's not exactly the most popular opinion on that. I struggle to get there, especially when you consider the lifespan.
Yeah, well, I think it's a case-by-case basis. I mean, I'm not gonna go in to a client and try to convince them one way or another. I need to listen to what they're hoping to get out of it. One of the big advantages of the camera, one of the big advantages of the camera base is the installation, down the center of the drive aisle.
That's
not
true.
having to displace the cars as much. I mean, you're still usually closing off a bay at a time, but not having to tow out cars or stand in the bed of a pickup truck like I've done before.
This is true. That's very true.
So that's awkward when the owner walks up and you're standing in his truck.
Yeah, no doubt. So have you seen any sort of trend where... So I started feeling like installing LPR at an airport for solely the purpose of like revenue protection, like doing the ticket matching and all that. Like up until we did MGM, like no one had really done, at least in the U.S., they really hadn't done frictionless at scale.
Correct.
And that was like the real first big one, and all of a sudden it blew up after that, right? It was, everyone was doing it that way. Mm-hmm. How long before airports stop doing ticket matching and only use LPR for ease of use and frictionless and all that?
I think you're getting there. In fact, I mean, I think in the history of putting in LPR at airports in my career, that goes back 18 years, a lot of times they've bought it and they're very interested in the revenue protection, but then they're not willing to operationally staff it, And, on the other hand, some of them are very concerned with matching every ticket, and they do staff it. So I do see now that there's airports, now that you have that frictionless thing, that's really something that adds customer value, faster transactions if they're in
the reservations too can utilize it. I mean, it really
sure
got going from playing defense with it to all of a sudden going to play offense with it. Just really, you get a lot more value out of the product that way.
Yeah, that's right. So and having the ability to go in and look up lost tickets for them is huge. So even if you're not necessarily trying to catch swaps all the time,
but you're using it for the lost ticket,
using it to because customers get mad if they honestly have only been there for a couple hours and you try to charge them the lost ticket fee. So from a customer service perspective, they're paying what they should be paying, and the airport's not losing what they potentially could be losing. So I think going forward, you're still going to see some airports will use it for the swap catching, and some won't.
So, yeah, that's cool.
But and that's one thing that I think the industry's done a great job at improving at in recent years was the accuracy of the LPR. It's so challenging with all the different plate types and dirty plates and trailer hitches, but the accuracy has come up to where we used to require like 85% perfect read rates, and now the companies are willing to commit to 93% perfect read rates, not including exceptions. In the systems we've been testing recently, we're seeing
probably scoring a little higher than that, actually.
Yeah, and it's really up like 96, 97% perfect rates, and so that helps a lot operationally.
It changes a lot of things when that starts happening.
Yeah, and well, it'll never be 100%, and so the ability to use it in a ticketless environment, I think is there now, but it's customer dependent. Airports with their high ticket value, they might not be willing to let those few go that aren't going to read right, and rightly so if they're good stewards of public funds and things of that nature.
Yeah.
Whereas maybe a retail environment or a campus environment where they're not as concerned, I think it's a very viable solution. I don't know that
the enforcement's still the issue.
Yeah, with license plates, I don't know that we'll ever get to a fully gateless parking world. But
everyone likes to talk about it. We'll see if we can ever actually get there. I think the enforcement side's always going to be the challenge on the private side. As long as you can't enforce privately and there's no teeth in it for just leaving.
Yeah.
Like if someone steals your shirt from your store,
yeah, you go to jail.
Yeah, you go to jail. But if somebody steals your parking,
yeah,
there's no you don't get to complain too much. Are you still putting in? Do you still see? I remember the days of the always airports always had booths. There were transaction panels and all those things. Right. Is that starting to fade out? Or
it is. It is. It's actually they for a long time they've been wanting to get more towards automation. So either putting in pay on foot or automated exit lanes, but they weren't willing to give up that last one or two booths.
There's always that one cashier,
grandma and grandpa that come to the airport once a year.
What sucks is then 15 people line up behind the booth.
Yeah,
we're 4
lemmings.
Automated lanes. Yeah,
I find myself being guilty of that too.
Me too. Why am I this late?
But no, recently we just did an evaluation for the Las Vegas McCarran Airport.
Okay.
And came to the conclusion that we'll be eliminating all the cashier booths there, so that'll be 100% automated. And
what sort of ratio on cash accepting pay on foots versus credit card?
Well, it was funny because they determined that right now they have way too many pay on foot stations.
Okay.
So that's something we looked at. We pulled peak usage from the top 3 months last year, and it was really interesting to find out that they've got a mix of credit card only and cash pay on foot stations, and the credit card only pay stations are hardly used.
Really?
And their perception is that people see the bigger unit and think it does more.
But are they paying credit card at the bigger unit or at the cash machine?
They're doing both there.
Okay.
Now, the airport also has a large cash contingent because of the lifestyle in Vegas with tips and strippers and
all the Vegas
That's
stuff.
True.
Yeah.
So anyway, long story short, we ended up recommending to get rid of all the credit card only pay on foot stations because they're barely used. And then also reducing the number of cash pay on foot stations that they already have, based on the utilization.
Wow.
And then they'll have no cashiers in the lanes at all. So there will be, starting off with roaming ambassadors to try to help people, of course, and that may never go completely away. We'll see over time. We're in similar discussions at the Charlotte Douglas Airport. They've got kind of tentative buy-in from their senior leadership to get rid of cashiers, but the final stamp of approval hasn't been made. The Port Authority, New York and New Jersey, those airports, I think there's one cashiered lane, possibly at JFK.
Okay.
Other than that, all automated. So, yeah, we definitely see that finally happening.
That's cool.
But, much to the parks manufacturers' chagrin, there's still going to be a lot of airports that aren't willing to do that, and they'll want the cashier stations. But from a system standpoint, the cashier station is one of the most complicated pieces.
Because it has to work as an automated lane as well as a cashiered lane.
Yeah.
Like back and forth all day long and still manage to keep all of those different rules around LPR and those things, and exception handling all has to exist. So it's way more complicated when there's a person involved. When you can fully automate it, it's like no problem.
Yeah. So I think, in Vegas's case, they had the benefit of watching what happened at MGM and at Caesars and seeing that, their local people are able to use automated systems.
They can figure it out.
Yeah, they can figure it out.
They got a pretty good back end, though. Quick response times. And stuff.
Yeah. And so, having the wherever the command center is, giving them those responders that are sitting there at the intercom stations, giving them CCTV cameras, pinhole cameras in the devices, access, having multiple monitors up so that they can get into all the different systems at one time to research, exception transactions or help customers process their transaction remotely is definitely paramount when you're going automated.
It'd be interesting if the airport talked to MGM about managing their call center.
That would be interesting.
nice public-private partnership there.
Yeah.
So, when someone wants to reach out to you, I mean, who are your clients that you feel are the best people to reach out to you? Like, who are your so if someone wants to engage with you to work on, a new parks RFP or their, just evaluate what they have or anything, like is it anybody in parking that should reach out to you, or is it specifically airports or?
Oh, not specifically airports. I think a lot of times the airport projects are very slow developing. They're known about in advance a lot of times. Other times, it's word of mouth because, the airport industry is fairly small. Really?
You did Cosmopolitan or Cosmo too in Vegas.
Yeah.
Afterwards.
Yeah, and that was sort of a similar thing. It's a close, the strip
Sure.
environment. Everybody knows everybody and looking over each other's shoulders. What are you doing there? So that Cosmo project was, sort of a offshoot of that. So that was a fun little project too. But certainly not just airports. We do work for universities. Just finished a project for Rice University in Houston.
Oh, really?
Which wasn't really technology based. I kind of dusted off my engineering background and did a restriping analysis for them. But that was fun because that was my first client when I got out of college.
That's cool.
Was putting in a ski data system. They went from all decals to gated access, which created quite an uproar on campus.
I'm sure it did.
System's still in there today, so I got to reconnect with my old client and help them out a little bit. But also like the retail is a big market right now for they're realizing the revenues that they can make off of parking and also how it really ends up as a customer service increase too. There's a lot of pushback at first, but being able to control the parking and control your parkers' behaviors by your policies and rates, that really ends up benefiting the customer. So yeah, there's a wide array of clients that we help.
It was interesting when we talked to some of the big retailers, big mall operators. People would download their apps, but they really weren't that interested in having like GPS turned on or having notifications turned on. But they would download the app for whatever salient benefit there was that they were able to get from it.
Sure.
But when they could wrap parking into it and they could give them a credential or a license plate or something like that, they all of a sudden got a notification of when that client was showing up.
Right.
They're getting it from the parking system, not necessarily from a geofence or any of that. So they found a lot of value in that as well.
Yeah, knowing your customer base. I mean, and that's, going back to what we were talking about, the pre-booking systems. Even if there's not necessarily a market share that you need to capture, just getting to know your customers and where they're coming from, when they come, how often they come, being able to open up a communications channel with them, it really is a huge benefit to that, even if you're already owning most of your market.
I've seen the metro expansions that are happening all over the country too are putting a lot of pressure on these suburban environments that didn't ever charge for parking before, and oftentimes they're building a metro stop right across from one of a big mall.
Sure.
And not putting near enough parking in to handle it.
Yep, and that's you see, we've done studies for municipalities and stuff. Like Palo Alto was one that we worked on. Very adverse to charging for parking, but their problem is on-street parking. Just being jammed up with employees.
Yeah.
And how do you enforce that if you're not willing to have
It's got to be some teeth.
50 people running around writing tickets.
Yeah.
So it's a challenge though, getting people to accept paid parking. Especially that Vegas project that it still burns.
Yeah, the news reporters out there and everything. That's crazy when all that went on.
Yep.
So what's the best way for someone to reach out to you?
Well, my email, james at 20-20parking.com. You can just go to our website, 20-20parking.com. All my contact information is there.
Cool.
Be happy to help anybody in any way I can.
Sounds good, man. Thanks for stopping by.
All right. I appreciate it, Lester. Good to see you.
Yep. Hello, everyone. Thanks for listening to this episode of Parker X. I really hope everyone's enjoying it. If you could please comment, share, subscribe, all the above. Certainly engaging the most on LinkedIn. So if you have time, if you see it pop up, please drop a comment. Let us know any guests you'd like to see us have on the show. Let us know if you want to be on the show. And let us know what you want to hear us talking about. Thanks.